was out there on Friday, said it was a rough practice for Dylan.
So I know I have the utmost standards for myself, and I know all I could do is go out there and do what I got to do every day. It's more about a bond. It's more about going all out. It's more about, how you'll be remembered.
And we don't hide anything. When our QB1 makes a mistake because he's not perfect, I'm going to show it. He had a wide open touchdown pass right there, but he came back and delivered right here with Luke Floria.
Morning.
I think every rep I get in general is valuable. We definitely taking things up a notch, I would say, with everything. So every rep, anytime I step on the field, I take it. Yeah, I don't think not getting out the mix is even a thought in my mind, in any room.
Dillon Gabriel in front of Shedeur. Yes, clearly an agenda pushing him in front of him. Guys, I'm going to play this right now.
I think he might have the most first-team reps of any of these quarterbacks.
Let's face it, some of these throws are like you're playing catch, like you're warming up.
When he misses, he typically misses high. And I tend to think that probably goes back to the size as well. And I saw a lot of the OTAs, and what I've seen from Dillon is a lot of checkdowns.
Yep.
A lot of move in the pocket. You have to.
A heavy rep load expected for Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders. Kenny Pickett, hamstring.
So we are getting to the point here where these stats, they matter more.
You're forcing me to evaluate this kid like he's a first-round pick. He's not.
Dillon Gabriel has 21 more reps than Shedeur coming into today, and only 2 more completions, 3 less touchdowns, 2 more interceptions. Again,
that's Andrew Berry's call. Andrew made the call to pick Shedeur. Just like who's going to start or what play we're going to call is Kevin's call, but that's Andrew's call. He made the call.
particularly Kevin Stefanski. Now, why is that? People think that Shedeur Sanders not getting a fair shake.
He has more than all of the damn quarterbacks. All of the damn quarterbacks. Now, Kenny Pickett is currently hurt.
Is he saying that's not happening because he didn't think Shedeur would be available? Or is he saying that's not happening because we didn't want to take him?
What if I told you the NFL deliberately destroyed the most explosive quarterback-receiver combination in college football not because they weren't good enough, but because they were too dangerous together? Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. just reunited on an NFL field for the first time since Colorado, and what happened next should terrify every team that passed on them. This isn't just about two late-round picks making good. This is about a league-wide conspiracy to protect mediocrity by splitting up greatness. And the evidence is hiding in plain sight. For 2 seasons at Colorado, Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. were unstoppable. They didn't just break records, they broke defenses, broke expectations, and broke the mold of what college football could look like. Then came draft day. Shedeur fell to the 5th round, pick 164. Jimmy Horn, 6th round, pick 207. 207 teams had a chance to grab the heart of Colorado's offense, and they all said no. But here's what the NFL doesn't want you to know. They didn't fall because of talent. They fell because together, they represented something the league couldn't control. And when they faced each other in that Browns-Panthers joint practice, with Shedeur going 4 for 7 with surgical precision while Jimmy torched Cleveland's defense on the other side, the truth became crystal clear. The NFL didn't just make a mistake, they made a calculated decision to protect their precious system from being exposed. Let's start with the most damning evidence, the draft itself. Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback who threw for over 8,000 yards and 69 touchdowns in 2 seasons, somehow lasted until pick 164. Jimmy Horn Jr., who caught 37 passes for 499 yards and 5 touchdowns while being Shedeur's most reliable target, fell to pick 207. But here's the kicker. Not a single team that needed both a quarterback and a receiver took both players. Think about that for a second. The Carolina Panthers, who desperately needed quarterback depth, took Jimmy Horn in the 6th round but never even considered Shedeur, who was still on the board. The Cleveland Browns took Shedeur but completely ignored Jimmy Horn, despite having receiver needs. This wasn't coincidence, this was coordination. Jimmy definitely is missed. I miss seeing the smile at practice with his gold grill, Shedeur told ESPN. That's not just nostalgia talking. That's a quarterback mourning the loss of his security blanket, his go-to weapon, his brother in battle. The NFL knew exactly what they were doing when they made sure these two would never wear the same uniform again. Look at the numbers that prove their connection was unstoppable. At Colorado, when Shedeur targeted Jimmy Horn, the completion percentage was astronomical. Their timing was telepathic. Their trust was unbreakable. And that's exactly what scared NFL front offices. They didn't want another Montana to Rice situation, another Brady to Edelman connection that could dominate for a decade. They wanted controllable, predictable, manageable talent. The proof is in how quickly both players are already making their respective teams regret not taking them higher. Panthers head coach Dave Canales can't stop praising Horn's energy and commitment, calling him one of the biggest steals of the entire draft. Meanwhile, Shedeur is quietly becoming the most efficient quarterback in Cleveland, going 4 for 7 with 0 interceptions in joint practice while showing the kind of calm command that veteran quarterbacks spend years trying to develop. But the most telling detail? When they faced each other in that joint practice, you could see the respect in every glance they exchanged. These weren't just former teammates, they were co-conspirators in a plot to expose every team that passed on them. And the NFL establishment is starting to panic. Here's where the conspiracy gets really ugly, the systematic media suppression of the Colorado connection story. When Shedeur and Jimmy Horn reunited on that practice field, it should have been the headline of every sports show, the lead story on every NFL website. Instead, what did we get? Crickets! The mainstream media focused on Joe Flacco going 8-for-13, Kenny Pickett's 2 touchdowns after returning from injury, and Dillon Gabriel's continued struggles. But Shedeur Sanders going 4 for 7 with perfect decision-making and 0 turnovers? Barely a mention. Jimmy Horn torching Cleveland's defense and walking into the end zone on a motion route that looked exactly like the plays he used to run with Shedeur at Colorado? Radio silence. This isn't accidental oversight. This is deliberate narrative control. The NFL's media machine doesn't want you connecting the dots between these two players because it exposes how badly every team screwed up. Think about it. If the story becomes about how the Colorado duo is already outperforming players drafted rounds ahead of them, suddenly 32 front offices have to answer some very uncomfortable questions. But the cover-up goes deeper than just ignoring their success. Look at how the media has handled Shedeur's situation in Cleveland. Despite having the cleanest decision-making in the quarterback room, despite showing more composure than Dillon Gabriel, who was drafted 50 spots higher, despite never throwing an interception, Shedeur is still being painted as the developmental project who needs time. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, who had a complete meltdown on day 9 of training camp, walking off the field after throwing a brutal interception, gets 113 first-team reps compared to Shedeur's 70. That's not development, that's sabotage. And the media's job is to make sure you don't notice the disparity. The most revealing moment came when reports surfaced that Shedeur wasn't actually injured during that mysterious arm soreness situation. Kevin Stefanski told reporters, "We're past that," essentially admitting Shedeur was 100% healthy. So why was he held out while Gabriel got extra reps? Because the Browns needed to maintain the illusion that their third-round investment was ahead of their fifth-round gamble. Even Shedeur's own father, Deion Sanders, has been kept away from Browns camp, not because of COVID protocols or scheduling conflicts, but because the NFL knows that the second prime time shows up, the circus starts and the excuses multiply. They'd rather keep Shedeur in the shadows than deal with the media attention that comes with acknowledging his talent. The conspiracy extends to how Jimmy Horn's success is being framed in Carolina. Instead of highlighting his connection to Shedeur and what they accomplished together at Colorado, the narrative is all about him being a sixth-round steal who's exceeding expectations. They're deliberately erasing the Colorado context because acknowledging it means admitting they broke up something special on purpose. Here's the ugly truth the NFL doesn't want you to face. The league actively protects mediocrity because mediocrity is controllable, predictable, and profitable. Greatness is dangerous. Greatness disrupts the established order. And the Colorado connection represented a level of greatness that threatened to expose just how many safe picks are actually just expensive mistakes. Look at Dillon Gabriel's situation in Cleveland. This is a quarterback who was projected as a 5th or 6th round developmental pick by most analysts, but the Browns were so locked in on him that they reportedly promised he'd be a top 100 pick during the draft process. Why? Because Gabriel represents everything the NFL establishment loves: a system quarterback who won't rock the boat, won't demand the spotlight, and won't make coaches look bad for not recognizing elite talent when they see it. Gabriel has now received 113 first-team reps compared to Shedeur's 70, despite showing inferior decision-making, worse pocket presence, and a tendency to crack under pressure. On day 9 of Browns training camp, Gabriel had a complete emotional collapse, throwing a brutal interception and walking off the field in frustration. That wasn't leadership. That was a player completely rattled by the pressure of living up to expectations he never should have had in the first place. But here's the kicker. Instead of demoting Gabriel after that meltdown, the Browns doubled down. They kept feeding him first-team reps while Shedeur continued to show the kind of calm, composed quarterbacking that wins championships. Why? Because admitting Shedeur is better means admitting their entire evaluation process was flawed. The same protection racket is happening across the league. How many teams passed on Jimmy Horn 207 times because he didn't fit their prototype for an NFL receiver? How many scouts wrote him off because he played at Colorado instead of Alabama or Georgia? The answer is all of them, and now they're watching him carve up defenses with the same breakaway quickness and fearless grit that made him Shedeur's go-to weapon in college. Panthers coaches are already calling Horn one of the biggest steals of the draft, but they're not connecting it to the obvious question: if he's such a steal, why didn't anyone else see it? The answer is they did see it, but they chose to ignore it because acknowledging Horn's talent means acknowledging they missed on 206 other players they ranked ahead of him. This protection of mediocrity extends to the media coverage, the depth chart politics, and even the practice rep distribution. Every time Shedeur outperforms Gabriel, the Browns find a new excuse to keep Gabriel ahead of him. Every time Jimmy Horn makes a spectacular play, the Panthers frame it as a surprise instead of the inevitable result of drafting a proven playmaker. The NFL has created a system where being safe is more valuable than being great, where fitting the mold matters more than breaking it, and where protecting front office egos takes priority over putting the best players on the field. The Colorado connection threatens all that, which is exactly why they had to be separated. When Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr. stepped onto that practice field for the Browns-Panthers joint session, something magical happened, and something terrifying for NFL executives. For the first time since draft day, the Colorado connection was back in the same building, and even though they were wearing different uniforms, the chemistry was undeniable. Shedeur went 4 for 7 with 0 interceptions, showing the kind of surgical precision and calm command that made him Colorado's field general. No flash, no unnecessary risks, just pure quarterbacking excellence. Meanwhile, Jimmy Horn was torching Cleveland's defense on the other side, running routes with the same timing and explosiveness that made him Shedeur's most trusted target in Boulder. But here's what the cameras didn't show you: the glances they exchanged, the subtle nods of recognition, the way both players seemed to elevate their games just by being in each other's presence again. This wasn't just nostalgia, this was proof that their connection transcended team uniforms and draft positions. Jimmy Horn took a motion route from Andy Dalton and walked it into the end zone during the scrimmage, and it was a play straight out of Colorado's playbook. Same timing, same trust, same execution. The only difference was the quarterback throwing the pass, and you could see in Horn's celebration that he was thinking about all those touchdowns he used to score with Shedeur delivering the ball. The most damning evidence came from how both players performed under the spotlight. While Dillon Gabriel continued to struggle with consistency and Kenny Pickett was just returning from injury, Shedeur looked like he belonged with the starters. His 4-for-7 performance wasn't just clean, it was commanding. He made the right reads, delivered accurate passes, and showed the kind of pocket presence that can't be taught. On the other sideline, Jimmy Horn was making Panthers coaches question their entire draft board. How did this guy last until the 6th round? How did 206 players get selected before him? The answer was becoming increasingly obvious, because the NFL was more concerned with separating him from Shedeur than with evaluating his actual talent. The reunion also exposed the artificial nature of both players' current situations. Shedeur is still listed as QB4 in Cleveland despite outperforming everyone ahead of him. Jimmy Horn is fighting for roster spots in Carolina despite showing he belongs in the starting lineup. Both players are being held back not by their performance, but by the league's need to justify the decisions that kept them apart. But the most telling moment came after practice, when both players spoke to reporters. Shedeur's comment about missing Jimmy's smile at practice with his gold grill wasn't just a throwaway line. It was a reminder of what the NFL destroyed when they split up the Colorado connection. These weren't just teammates, they were brothers who made each other better, and seeing them excel separately only highlighted how dominant they could have been together. The joint practice was supposed to be routine preparation for preseason games. Instead, it became an indictment of every front office that chose to break up greatness in favor of maintaining the status quo. Even after the joint practice exposed the truth about the Colorado connection, the NFL's cover-up machine kicked into overdrive. Instead of acknowledging what everyone witnessed, 2 late-round steals outperforming players drafted rounds ahead of them, the league doubled down on protecting the narrative that justified splitting them up in the first place. Look at how the Browns handled Shedeur's performance. Despite going 4-for-7 with perfect decision-making, he's still buried on the depth chart behind Dillon Gabriel, who has 21 more reps but only 2 more completions, 3 fewer touchdowns, and 2 more interceptions. The math doesn't lie, but the Browns are pretending it doesn't exist. Kevin Stefanski's response to questions about the quarterback competition has been telling. Dillon has been ahead of Shedeur, and Shedeur has ground to make up. Ground to make up? Shedeur has been the most efficient quarterback in camp, hasn't thrown an interception, and shows better command of the offense than Gabriel. What ground exactly does he need to make up, other than the artificial deficit created by the coaching staff's predetermined preferences? The cover-up extends to how the media is framing both players' success. Jimmy Horn's emergence in Carolina is being sold as a surprise development, as if his college production with Shedeur never happened. Panthers beat reporters are acting shocked that a receiver who caught passes from one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football knows how to run precise routes and make contested catches. Meanwhile, Shedeur's calm, composed performances are being downplayed as managing the game rather than recognized as elite quarterbacking. When he doesn't throw interceptions, it's because he's being conservative. When he makes the right reads, it's because the defense is giving him easy looks. The goalposts keep moving because acknowledging his excellence means acknowledging the system failed. The most insidious part of the cover-up is how both organizations are using their players' success to validate their draft strategies while simultaneously suppressing the Colorado connection narrative. The Browns want credit for developing Shedeur without admitting they buried him behind inferior talent. The Panthers want praise for finding Jimmy Horn without acknowledging they let him fall to the 6th round. But the cover-up is starting to crack. Fans are connecting the dots on social media, posting side-by-side comparisons of Shedeur's efficiency versus Gabriel's struggles. Browns supporters are flooding training camp with chants of "put in Shedeur" that can't be ignored forever. Panthers fans are already calling Jimmy Horn a future star and questioning why he wasn't drafted higher. The preseason games will be the ultimate test of whether the cover-up can hold. When Shedeur takes snaps as Cleveland's starting quarterback against Carolina, and when Jimmy Horn lines up across from the Browns defense, the Colorado connection will be on full display again. No amount of media spin or depth chart manipulation will be able to hide what happens when these two players get the chance to show what the NFL tried to destroy. The conspiracy to split up the Colorado connection was supposed to protect the league from its own evaluation failures. Instead, it's about to expose them on the biggest stage possible. The evidence is overwhelming, and it's hiding in plain sight. The NFL didn't just make a mistake when they split up Shedeur Sanders and Jimmy Horn Jr., they made a calculated decision to protect a system that values conformity over excellence, predictability over greatness, and front office egos over championship potential. From the coordinated draft strategy that ensured they'd never play together again, to the media blackout that suppressed their reunion story, to the ongoing cover-up that keeps both players artificially buried on their respective depth charts, every piece of evidence points to the same conclusion. The league was terrified of what the Colorado connection represented. But here's what they didn't count on: greatness can't be suppressed forever. Shedeur Sanders is about to start a preseason game as Cleveland's quarterback. Jimmy Horn Jr. is already making Panthers coaches regret not drafting him higher. And when these two face each other under the Friday night lights, the truth will be undeniable. The NFL tried to break up the most dangerous duo in football to protect mediocrity. Instead, they created two separate weapons of mass destruction that are about to expose every team that passed on them. This Friday night isn't just Browns versus Panthers, it's the Colorado Connection's revenge tour. And every front office executive who thought they were being smart by keeping these two apart is about to learn a very expensive lesson about what happens when you try to suppress greatness. The conspiracy is real. The cover-up is crumbling. And the reckoning is coming. Here's what I want you to do. Go back and watch that joint practice footage if you can find it. Look at the glances between Shedeur and Jimmy Horn. Watch how both players seem to elevate their games just by being in each other's presence. Then ask yourself this question: if these two are already this good apart, how dominant would they have been together? Drop a comment below with your prediction for Friday's game. Will Shedeur outshine every quarterback drafted ahead of him? Will Jimmy Horn torch the Browns defense that could have been catching passes from his college quarterback? And most importantly, which team is going to regret not keeping the Colorado connection intact? If you want to see more exposés on how the NFL's power structure suppresses talent to protect the status quo, smash that subscribe button. Because this story is just the beginning. The league has been playing these games for decades, and it's time someone started calling them out. In the next video, I'm diving into how the NFL's combine system is rigged to favor certain types of players while burying others who don't fit the mold. You won't want to miss it. The Colorado connection was supposed to be destroyed. Instead, it's about to destroy every excuse the NFL has been hiding behind. And we'll be here to document every moment of their revenge.